Welcome to my channel. My name is Nahum, where the hair on the back of your neck will stand up and your heart will race with fear. Get ready to be transported to a world of terror and suspense, where anything can happen and nothing is as it seems. So sit back, turn off the lights, and let us take you on a journey to the dark and unknown. And don't forget to subscribe to never miss a single spine-chilling story. Freak Next Door. I lived next to this one kid who always had bandages wrapped around their whole head, even covering their face. I remembered his name was Wilbur, a 12-year-old boy who never left his house. He sometimes looked out of his bedroom window on the top floor, at all of the kids who would play outside, while Wilbur sat and watched. I remembered his windows had metal bars on them, so there was no way he could climb out of his bedroom windows. We sometimes communicated to each other by writing to each other on pieces of paper, since Wilbur can't hear me because the window was locked. Wilbur only does it when his parents aren't around since they're weird. His mother and father were one of those parents that were insanely crazy about science and chemistry, according to Wilbur. They would stay in their basement and work all day and night, except at the times where they have to give Wilbur some food daily. Now, they're not treating him like an animal. His parents were just very busy. They told Wilbur that he shouldn't go outside to make contact with anyone until his face got better. Me that he accidentally slipped on one of his parents' chemicals and fell face first, ruining his appearance. And his parents feared that he would be made fun of by the other kids in the neighborhood. I remember one time, a couple of older kids were throwing rocks and pebbles at his windows, laughing and pointing at Wilbur as he looked down at them. He told me that they do it a few times, but he's used to it. But to me, he's a great guy, and still is today. I have never been inside his house, but he showed me some cool stuff he collected, like comic books. He had loads of them, from Marvel to DC to other non-superhero comics. He was a huge superhero fan. He even said that he felt like a superhero. A normal human being who became affected by dangerous chemicals, and then became a powerful superhero. He once wrote on a piece of paper and had it put up to his window as he pretended to be a superhero. I had a collection of action figures and video games that amazed Wilbur. He told me that he never played a single video game in his life, which was quite sad. He also told me that his babysitter took them away from him before he could play them, and burned them in front of him. Wilbur had a mean babysitter named Miss Fitzgerald, a tall mean lady who never liked kids at all. This started before his face became messed up, he told me. She was basically every kid's nightmare, of all the things I heard she has done. Miss Fitzgerald had babysat many kids before, and trust me, it was not pretty. Wilbur told me that the last kid she babysat, a 4-year-old girl, she made her life through 7 hours of hell. Wilbur said that Miss Fitzgerald starved her and surrounded her bed with a few bear traps, and the worst thing that happened, the parents didn't know about her deed. She would lie to them, just to get paid. All those things I've heard. She is a foul, cruel woman with no soul. At all. And now she had to babysit this poor guy. Wilbur was old enough to make his own decisions, except for some, but his parents apparently hired an evil witch. The parents had to go to Texas to a scientist convention, so Wilbur was left alone with her. One time, I was writing about her to show to him, but then I saw Miss Fitzgerald, forcefully pulling him away from the window. And that was the rest of my day without talking to him. The next day, when I looked through my window to see Wilbur, I saw someone lying down on his bed. Looking at the person's wrapped head, I banged my fist on the window, trying to get Wilbur's attention. He slowly sat up on his bed, wiping away tears from his eyes. He seemed to be crying, which gave me a thought. I had a worried look on my face as I saw bruises all over his arms and legs, a faded dark tone of purple. He went to write something down on a piece of paper. Then as Wilbur finished writing, he went up to the window and pressed the note on the glass. What he wrote had terrified me. The whole situation still burnt in the back of my mind. Something I knew I would never forget. He wrote, "Help me." What made it worse was that his handwriting was scribbled onto the paper, and was almost illegible. Wilbur kept banging on the window with his other hand. Then suddenly, I saw someone else run into his bedroom next to him. It was her. You know who. She had something in both of her big, chubby hands. In one hand was a lemon, and in the other was a pair of scissors. What Miss Fitzgerald did terrified me even more. Miss Fitzgerald ran up to Wilbur, grabbing his head, holding it still. I saw him screaming in pain and fear, so I knew I had to do something. At the same time, I couldn't stop watching. She used her scissors to cut open the bandages, and unwrapped them off his head, and threw them to the side. What I saw almost made me vomit, something that sickened me. I was utterly shocked at looking at Wilbur's real, deformed face. His whole head was completely covered by bandages, and what was underneath, I knew the purpose to. I saw his face, almost melted off, showing a dark red layer underneath. I could only imagine his face looking like melted cheese on a cheeseburger. Wilbur's whole face, even one of his eyeballs were burnt a bit. The chemicals had messed him up, badly. Miss Fitzgerald sliced the lemon in half with the scissors, pinning Wilbur down on his bed. Then she threw the scissors to the side, next to the bandages, and held his head still with one hand. With the other hand, she squeezed a lemon slice onto Wilbur's head, into his eyes, into the red layer of his face. The painful expression on his face, his loud, muffled screams, his face stinging from the acid of the lemon juice. She used the other lemon to squeeze onto his face again, torturing Wilbur with extreme pain. I decided to bang my fist on my window, which was a bad idea. Miss Fitzgerald looked over to the bedroom window, right at me. I jumped back. She noticed me. She ran back out of the bedroom, shoving Wilbur down as he screamed in pain and agony. I knew what she was going to do, so I ran out of my bedroom and ran downstairs. Welcome to my channel. The good thing about this situation was that my parents don't know stand up in your heart will raise they were at work for a little while. Get ready to be transported to the world of terror and suspense, hoping that where anything can happen and nothing is in my house. I looked around for the house, turned off the lights, but as I was, a loud bang in the dark and unknown. I looked behind myself. Don't forget to subscribe. Noticing never miss a single spine-chilling her curly blonde hair next door. By the looks in her eyes, I lived next to this one kid who always had bandages wrapped around their whole head at the door, even covering their face, her head off. I remembered his name was Wilbur, the phone. A 12-year-old boy who never left his house. Next to the couch on the coffee table, he looked out of his bedroom window on the top floor, dialing 911 as the lay outside while Wilbur sat and watched. I remembered his windows had metal bars on them, so there was no way he could climb out of his bedroom windows. The usual greeting from a 911 operator to each other by writing explain the whole situation from Wilbur can't hear me because the window was locked. They told me to wait when his parents aren't around arrive at my house soon. His mother and father were one of those parents that were insanely crazy about science and chemistry. According to my parents, they would stay in their basement and work all day and night. They got a call from the police where they have to give Wilbur my situation, and decided to come home. They're not treating him like an animal. My parents were extremely frightened. They told Wilbur that he shouldn't go outside to make contact with anyone until his face got better. From being told me that he accidentally slipped on one of his parents' chemical to what she tried to first, ruining his about an hour later, and his police officer came to me made fun of something the other kids in the tell me about that horrible atrocity. I remember one time next door, a couple of older kids were throwing rocks and pebbles at his windows, and laughing and pointing at Wilbur as he looked down at them. Based on the evidence they do it a few times, Wilbur's parents weren't his actual parents at all. But to me, they adopted Wilbur from an orphanage that's out of town. I have never been inside his house, but he showed me some cool stuff. It was the reason why they moved to Texas. To hide. He had loads of them. The babysitter, Marvel to DC to other non-superhero experiments too. He was a huge superhero fan. Wasn't the first kid even to get adopted by the scientist. And normal illegal experiments became affected by danger, and it was to find out how much pain a child can take before death. He once wrote on a piece of paper and had it put up to his window 38 children the ages of 2 and 13
I had a collection
were
of
reported missing,
action
and
figures
Wilbur
was
was
one
video
of them.
games that amazed Wilbur.
There were security
He told
cameras
me
on
that
the
he never
outside
played a
and the
single
inside
video
of the
game in
house,
his life,
right
which was
now.
quite
They
sad.
arrested Miss
He also told
Fitzgerald
me that
for
his
child
babysitter
cruelty
took
and
them
the
away
deaths
from
of
many
before he
children,
could play them,
and are on the
and
case
burned
to
them
find
in
the
front
two
of them.
scientists. Wilbur
All
had
of
a
that,
mean babysitter
and I was
named
friends
Miss
with someone who would
Fitzgerald,
have been
a
killed
tall,
if I
mean
didn't
lady
call
who
the
never
police.
liked
Kids at all.
Apparently,
This
Wilbur
started
also
before
trying
his
to
face
lie about
became
almost
messed up.
everything he
He
told
told
me.
me
He was
he
trying
was
to
basically
protect
every
himself.
kid's nightmare.
He was
Of all
sent
the
to a
things
new
I heard she
trusted
has
family,
done, a married couple
Miss
who lived out
Fitzgerald
of
had
town.
babysat many
Since
kids
then,
before,
I never
and
saw
trust
him
me,
again.
It was
Until
not
now.
pretty. Wilbur
20
told me
years
that the
later,
last kid
I
she
went to a
babysat
bar to get
a
myself a
4-year-old
few
girl.
drinks by
She
myself.
made her life
When a
through
man
7 hours
approached
of
me,
hell. Wilbur
remember
said that
me?
Miss Fitzgerald
He said
starved her
that
and
familiar
surrounded
man
her bed
smiling
with a few
at me.
bear traps.
I smiled
and the
back,
worst thing that
realizing
happened,
how
the
long it
parents
has been
didn't
since
know
I had
about her
last
deed.
seen Wilbur.
She would lie to
In
them,
fact,
just
he
to get
looks like a
paid.
nice,
All
healthy
those
man
things
now,
I've heard
without
she's
his
a foul,
bandages.
cruel
He
woman
was a
with no soul.
brown-haired man with
At
sky
all.
blue eyes,
and now
he
she had
almost
to
looked like a
babysit this
complete
poor guy.
stranger.
Wilbur was
And
old
after
enough
that,
to make his
we
own
talked
decisions,
and drank a few glasses,
except for some.
finally
But his
speaking
parents
to each other
apparently
in
hired
person.
an evil witch.
Wilbur and I
The
knew that
parents
nobody
had
would
to go
try
to
to
keep
keep
us
us to a
apart.
scientist
The
convention,
scientists and
so
the
Wilbur was
babysitter
left
are
alone
probably
with her.
locked away right now.
One time,
After
I was
all,
writing
I
about
still
her to
couldn't
show
stop
him,
thinking
but
of the
then I
fact
saw
that
Miss
this man would
Fitzgerald
have been killed if I
forcefully
didn't
pulling
help
him
save
away
his
from
life.
the window. And